Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. It's a good time of year. It's like Thanksgiving time, 2025. There's a lot to be thankful for. I personally love this time of year. I like the family gatherings. I like having Thanksgiving dinner. I get a big kick out of it. But it's always interesting when you start talking about people family members especially, who, you're born to a family. What's a family? I think the idea of a family is a very interesting thing. What's a family? So I would define a family interaction, and this is how I deal with my grandchildren and any children I'm always dealing with. I always tell people, they wonder why I'm different with kids. I wouldn't say I'm different than I am with adults, but at a certain point, I think the investment on a child is worth something because a child still has an opportunity at life. And when adults get to a certain place, the mistakes that are made just start stacking up and you can't do anything about it. And at some certain point, you're just going to be a loser at life. And I feel sorry for adults. Most adults, I don't really speak to many. I talk to adults in a business way, in a friendly way. I'm nice to just about everybody. But once people start getting up over 20, 25 years old, I lose hope for them, because my measure of age isn't the revolutions around the sun that determines your age. I measure age in mistakes. And, you start seeing kids that get into their 20s and 30s, and mistakes start racking up, and it starts showing. And when you start seeing people in their 40s and 50s, and they look like beat up old relics, and they have all kinds of health problems, and they're overweight, and they're unhappy, and they're on their second or third marriage, and there's just one disaster after another. It becomes a series of mistakes that have led them to that place in life. And every bad mistake you make shows on the photography of your face. So you don't see too many people who look wild and beautifully vibrant that are over 35 years old. And it's not necessarily the biological mechanisms, it's the impact that series of mistakes have. As opposed to like a kid going into puberty, and they got the whole life ahead of them, so they're very reckless, and they go out and do all the same stupid things that all the other stupid people are doing out in the world, and they think it's going to happen different for them. And then they get to be that age and they're the same disasters. So whenever you have these family gatherings, I kind of keep to myself, make the observations, and you can see the weight year by year of some of these family members as they had another year of mistakes, another year of troubles, another year where the bills are hard to pay, or their kid ended up getting in trouble for something stupid and weighs on them, and the mistakes of life really pull them down. And the only relief you get from it is maybe some good food on Thanksgiving, and maybe a good football game, and people might tell a few good jokes, and that ends up being the quality of the experience. Recently I said, but when it comes to kids, like I was saying, I treat children a little bit different because they haven't made the mistakes yet. And my statement on children is the key to it is try to keep them from making as many mistakes as their peers. And everybody might be pretty even, just like in a marathon race. Everybody starts off in the same line. Everybody's kind of bunched up there. But when you get about 5 miles down the road, they start spreading out. And the people in the back of the line are very far away from the people at the front of the line. And you start seeing who's really doing well. And so by the time kids get into their 20s and 30s, if they keep them from making a lot of stupid mistakes, they're going to be way out ahead in life, and they're going to have a much better experience. And by the time they're in their 40s and 50s and 60s, you'll find that they may look a little more vibrant and have a little bit higher quality life than their peers by the time they get to that age. I know, I've raised a couple children. I got quite a few grandchildren, and you can watch this over time, and I'm pretty proud of my kids. I mean, life can be hard. I'm pretty proud of how they've handled it, and they still come to Thanksgiving dinner pretty vibrant. Still have Christmas days where everybody enjoys their life and can enjoy things pretty well. because they haven't made the kind of mistakes yet in life that is detrimental and irrecoverable. But a lot of people do get to that place, and when you start having everybody over for dinner, you hear their stories, and everybody kind of compares notes a little bit quietly, and that's kind of the irony of the experience. People, you get together, the family unit is a selected group of people because it's all built on choice, and so bad choices tend to lead to bad things. So families are interesting because you go out, you choose in American culture, you choose a spouse, and from the choice of that spouse, you have kids, and then those kids grow up, and then they choose spouses, and they bring in other people who have all different other cultures with them, and the quality of those choices will have an impact on the quality of your family. So if everybody's making bad choices along the way, they choose the wrong spouse, they have kids for all the wrong reasons, they choose their work, their jobs, the kind of car they drive, the kind of TV they're watching football on, the kind of food that's on the table. Everything really comes down. Families are really about choice and the quality of those choices. And if you can keep kids from growing up and making a lot of bad decisions, forcing them to make bad choices, they'll have higher quality lives later in life. It's not about so much what you learn from grade kindergarten through 12, or college experience. It's about avoiding the impact of bad choices. So you might grow up a little innocent and naive about things, and maybe be 25 years old and not have had all the rigors and downfalls that a lot of people in a similar culture have experienced because they've been rebelling since they were 12, and doing the same biological escape velocity from their families that everybody else has gone through. The net result is that you get to be an adult and you're not so jaded and messed up. You actually have some runway left, and you haven't been burdened by the imposition of bad choices. But ultimately, families, you have the biological children. The baby comes out, you say, oh, he's got my mouth, oh, he's got your nose, oh, it looks just like so-and-so, and because you trace the genetic parts that come from the biological experience. But then there's the intellectual part. There's the choices that a person makes. The choice to listen to their parents, the choice of what a parent tells their kids. And then when the kid is old enough, they make choices. They go out and get spouses. Those spouses, then they have children, and they bring the children over. And then you have some kids that were, born at different times in a family's creation. And maybe the family had different offerings of wisdom. And so some kids are more prepared to make better choices than other kids. And, everybody sits down around the Thanksgiving table based on the choices they've made in life, and they're comparing notes. Whether they mean to or not, they do. And the choices that are made are often determine the happiness of the people at the table. And there's people who make a lot of bad choices, and they thought that somehow God was going to come in and wipe the slate clean and give them a good life. Or maybe they might win a lottery ticket and win a lot of money and be able to buy a house and a car and not have to worry about paying their debts, or whatever it is that they thought a good life was. The choices they made, they're often pretty miserable about because they weren't taught to make good choices. And so the key to happiness is try and teach kids, talk to their eternal self, try to talk to the part of them that isn't just a biological connection to you, but their eternal spirit that is everlasting in their journey through existence. Try to speak to that part of them and try and encourage them not to make choices in their biological lifetimes that are detrimental to the burdens of their free spirit. And if you can do that, they'll be a lot happier. They'll be a lot better off, and the Thanksgiving dinners will be a lot more nurturing and the kind of psychological connection that people are craving when they have a family experience. They always come to these dinners, these Thanksgiving dinners, full of, oh, it's good to see you again. And then usually everybody leaves like, oh, so-and-so has a new car, or so-and-so is looking down their nose at me because they have a better job than I have, or their kids are better than mine. And, and then it ends up being a miserable experience. Everyone goes home kind of sad, and they don't talk very much for the next year. And that's not really how it's supposed to be, and it can be avoided. And I think it's an opportunity. I always enjoy having these opportunities to, have a nice day, come over, have some nice food, and put away all the anxieties of the world for even a couple hours and just enjoy being together. But often the burden of bad choices plagues those kinds of experiences. And if you can teach a generation of kids something, it would be, don't follow what everybody else is doing, because everybody else is going to look like that potato looking 50-year-old person that is not looking too healthy, because they've abused themselves over a long period of time because they were looking for ways to cover up all their bad choices they made in life. And now they look like that disaster. And that miserable disaster is trying to encourage everybody else to be just as much of a disaster as they are, because they're secretly very jealous of anybody that hasn't gone through all the bad choices they've made, because they don't want to feel like they're alone in the whole exchange. It gives them comfort to see that the next generation makes the same stupid choices, because it makes them not feel so bad about themselves. And they say, it's a cycle of life. No, it's a cycle of bad decisions. And when you allow bad decisions to create a country or a family, or even yourself, you can't be surprised when things don't work right, when you've made a series of errors and then thrown it all to God and said, here, fix it for me. I made a bunch of bad decisions and I need you to fix it. And often that doesn't happen, and people are desperately miserable in the exchange of it. And if you really want to help a kid and kids that are coming up in these families, teach them not to be like that. And, teach them not to make the same dumb mistakes that you made. And don't try not to be so bitter about the place you are in life. And maybe you'll inspire them to have much better lives, and that he can at least do something good with all the bad decisions you've made. And that's to encourage them not to make the same stupid decisions, instead of repeating the same cycle over and over again, generation after generation after generation. And if you can do that, and I think you'll have a much better family experience. Families are really good, but they really are the embodiment of choice. And you might start off with your biological people that you created in the world through a nice marriage to a person you chose. But then the quality of that life and that family is going to be reflected in the people they choose to bring into your family. And then you've got a cascading bunch of characters come from all different places and backgrounds with all kinds of different influences. And now they're all at the kitchen table, eating turkey together and comparing notes. And the value of that experience comes down to the choices everybody at that table has made, and whether they can support each other or repulse each other. And more often than not, it's a repulsive condition that doesn't give people what they truly desire in the family experience. And that's a shame. And the way to fix that is to fix it with the next generation and try to encourage them not to make the same stupid mistakes, and give them something to look up to. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you ever read my book, Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.